Hey cats, it's your midsole man Eddbud here, back with another shoe review for you. The cats over at Puma have fired over their latest model. This is the Puma Deviate Nitro 3. We got a split carbon plate here and a hefty slab of nitro foam underfoot, along with a more durable outsole and a more trainer-like upper feel. Does this follow on well from the fans' favourite Deviate Nitro 2 from a couple of years ago? Let's find out. Thanks for joining me once again on the channel. Do hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already, and also give this video a thumbs up like, it really helps out. Also drop us a comment to help fight the algorithm. Danke schön. Puma have sent this one over to me for review, but they're not paying me to make this video, and they won't get to vet my views before my valued viewers get to see them. Stats wise, a bit of an increase in weight here for my UK size 11, US size 12. We've now got 318 grams here in the Puma Deviate Nitro 3. That's about 11.3 ounces, which makes it about 18 grams heavier than the version 2. Midsole stack, I get 39mm here in the heel and about 33mm up front. That makes for a drastically different measurement to what Puma have given us on their website. In fact, it's pretty much exactly as per the Puma Deviate Nitro 2. It's certainly not a 10mm drop or even an 8mm drop. I've got a 6mm drop here. Puma reckon it's a 39mm heel stack and a 29 in the forefoot. I'm not too sure what's going on there, but I had the same measurements in the previous version, so if you liked that one and how that felt, then I think you'll probably like this one. 11.3 centimeters at the widest point in the forefoot and about 9.1 centimeters at the widest point in the heel. So if you measure it up against the V2, it's actually very, very similar. The midsole foams here come in at around about 25 for the Nitro Elite section, which is on top of the stack here, and the lower section is Nitro foam. That's coming at around about 31, and that's pretty much exactly what I had in the last version. So a little bit heavier, but exactly the same midsole spec and feel. Okay, we'll start the review with the upper first. I've got about 15 miles into these now, a few runs just to sort of bring all my views together. Upper's certainly a little bit thicker in feel than the version 2. We have an engineered mesh here, and it's quite flexible and breathable in the toe box area. Does feel a little bit more plush, a little bit thicker, I suppose, in the heel area and around the rest of the foot. It's soft enough, it's certainly comfortable. There are some thicker plastic overlays here though that some people might not like. We got that quite thick Puma logo on the lateral side, and then on the toe box the Puma cat logo too. And this of course is proving to be one of those Marmite design features. You either really love the Nitro text or you don't. I haven't found that Puma logo irritating the toes too much. It's quite flexible, and you've got this sort of flannel like tongue. It's really quite odd in terms of texture, with padding only where it's needed. So there's a section up through the center of the tongue and then two pieces around about where the final eyelets are on the chain. The tongue is only partially gusseted, and I found it does a really good job of keeping the tongue central so you don't get any slide. Lacing wise though, I did get some heel slip using a standard bow or even a runner's knot. The only way I managed to alleviate this was by lacing the shoe up right to the final eyelets and then tying up. I did need a reasonable amount of pressure over the top of the foot, and that seemed to alleviate any of the heel slip I had. I would suggest though that the shoe does break in after some miles, and I found it became a little bit more flexible. So I think if you perhaps get the shoe out of the box and on those initial runs you have that problem, it may go away. I'm not saying it will, but it might. I believe part of the problem is down to that very shallow heel counter. There is a traditional one here, but it ends kind of quite early. They've then put this sort of plasticky piece on the back here with a quite sharp protrusion. I guess this external piece here is supposed to be like an external heel counter, but I found it didn't really do a great job. There's quite a lot of padding around the back of the shoe, and I know that in the original Deviate Nitro they had some issues with heel slip. I mean, this does shape the heel quite well, but I think a more conventional heel counter would have solved the problem and meant they didn't need this external part here. Another thing that could have improved the fit is if they moved these lace loops here just up a notch. There is in fact an eyelet there as well, so it kind of feels like they've been put on and they're not really doing a huge amount of heavy lifting. It's like extra stuff that's just been added to the shoe that I feel isn't really benefiting it at all. So over the first 15 miles or 24 kilometers, I've managed to alleviate the heel sip. I've had no sort of uncomfortable runs. The laces do have a small amount of flex to them, not a massive amount, but they do seem to suit the upper very, very well. I do have to say I love the actual profile and colourway of this shoe. It is absolutely fantastic. But one of the most talked about things on the channel for the Puma Deviate Nitro Elite 3 review was the inclusion of the Nitro text, and it is here again on the Deviate Nitro 3. Let me know if you're a fan of that or not down in the comments. I think most of the weight gain here in this new version of the shoe is down to the upper materials, and I think that might put it in a less favourable light in certain people's mind than the V2. So a few strange fit issues and some extra weight from those extra materials. It's not really a step forward. I'm going to give it a 2.5 out of 3 for the upper so far. Midsole. Midsole.
Midsole now.
Now, midsole wise, I don't think this is a huge departure from the V2. The same type of balance between the foams, and there's not any real difference in the stack or the drop. Though, when I've looked back at the V2, the top section of the Nitro Elite material there feels way closer to what we've got in the Deviate Nitro Elite 3. So I don't know whether they've changed the foams or there's certain colourways that have a slightly different foam. It does feel softer in the Deviate Nitro 2 versus 3. Almost got myself confused there, but there's definitely something going on there. Whether they've changed it in certain ones or the early versions were different, I don't know. This feels pretty close though to the last version. There's that compression there in the forefoot section, a little bit more stability and a slightly firmer ride there from the Nitro foam in the heel. The plates are a little bit different here. It's like a split sort of plate rather than just a sort of filled in one. Got some props here. So this is the plate that's used in the Elite version, and this is the one that's used in the Deviate Nitro split. I always think this one looks a bit like Forky from Toy Story. It's a little less rigid, and to me that makes this shoe much better at those sort of easier or steady paces. I think many people actually could run a road marathon in the Deviate Nitro 3 without any issues whatsoever. Just feels ideal for those people that are after a more stable shoe, perhaps for a longer distance race. I think this shoe's probably the closest thing I've reviewed actually to the original Nike Zoom Fly or the Zoom Fly Flyknit from back in like 2018, though I would suggest that the midsole is a little bit more engaging in this shoe. For me, it's really singing at round about 7 minutes 30 pace, so I guess that'll be round about marathon pace for me. I could just lock into a specific cadence there, an effort level, and just carry on for ages. Though it's no speed demon, I think at 318 or 319 grams or whatever it is, I wouldn't really want to run a 5k or 10k race in this one. It's just too much shoe now. The previous version was a little bit lighter. It just felt a little bit more engaging and up for it. And you've got to consider now that this is like almost 100 grams heavier than the Deviate Nitro Elite 3, the race shoe sort of brother. And it's quite a difference, and the shoes don't really feel that close to each other. I wouldn't suggest that they're a training partner shoe. Nitro foams in all their different guises have proved to be very durable over time, so I think you're going to get some reasonable miles out of this one. They don't really lose their cushion or their spring over time, and weather seems to be pretty forgiving on the foam. So I think if you like the V2, you'll probably like this one, but I think there are other shoes now around about this price range that have a little bit more pop and less weight. I'll give it a 2.6 out of 3 for the midsole so far. Outsole wise, we've got some serious Puma grip rubber here. They certainly haven't scrimped. A very thick rubber spread with about 3mm of depth here in the forefoot. A little bit extra back here in the heels, around about 4mm of depth. It's sticky, it's rough, and it's coarse. Reminds me of a lot of music venues in the 90s. It does have some shallower ridges here, but I found that that didn't really decrease the amount of grip or traction that you've got going around corners. Though I would suggest the slightly more generous amount of rubber here has decreased the flexibility of the shoe in the forefoot, and it does make it quite a slappy one from a sound perspective. There is some exposed midsole here, but like I mentioned earlier, I don't think that that's going to be too detrimental to the durability. I mean, you could get some rocks and stones caught in the cutout section here, but that's a danger for any carbon plate shoe with that feature. The ridges aren't so deep here that you need to use too much effort to remove any debris. A hard bristle brush will do the job. My main bugbear, I suppose, with the previous version of the shoe was whether you needed all that rubber there. Does seem to be just too much, just too generous. I find myself asking the same question here. Certainly when you're looking at a shoe that's supposed to be for sort of more speedy sessions. I suppose that if you traverse some light trails, then it could still work for you. It's perhaps a little more versatile, but for me it felt like it needed quite a lot of effort to reach those faster paces, so it's more drifting into that sort of steady pace long run territory rather than a shoe I want to use to do some faster sessions. But I suppose if you're running a road marathon, you want some reliable grip in any sort of weather, the Deviate Nitro 3 could still do the job. I'll give it a 2.8 out of 3 for the outsole so far. Value now. So the shoe's coming in slightly more expensive than the V2, only by a £5, so it's not too bad of an increase. I can see people enjoying this one from a daily use perspective. Perhaps if you're doing some steady efforts, you're doing some long runs with a couple of faster bits in there. But I think there's enough width here in the midsole to provide some reasonable stability when you start to get a little tired later into those runs. I do feel that the Endorphin Speed 4 from Saucony's perhaps got a little bit over this one. It's quite a bit lighter, though it is 30 quid extra. This certainly isn't Puma's answer to the Adidas Takumi Sen 10. This is coming in way heavier, though quite a bit cheaper in terms of price. Does perplex me a little bit as to why Puma have made this model that little bit heavier when everybody loved it for those sort of faster sort of tempo sessions. Quality's great out the box though, I have to say. Every bit's put together well, there's no dodgy stitching, there's no main areas here that I'd be too worried about in terms of longevity, aside from perhaps these lace loops, although they're reinforced anyway with some para tape and also some plastic overlays. I could see the tongue fraying a little bit over time. You can see it's sort of got this open type design. I don't think it's going to really inhibit performance or anything like that. This is absolutely better than the Nike Dud Zoomfly 5, though for a plated shoe I think I probably still prefer the Boston 12 over this one, and that's a little bit cheaper. It's lighter, it's just more nimble in nature. I'll give it a 2.6 out of 3 for value so far. So if I've totaled the scores up correctly, after my initial runs for the Puma Deviate Nitro 3, we've got a 10.5 out of 12. A good shoe, but it's not really moved on all that much from the V2. I did find this one true to size, and I do believe it drops on July 1st. 2024. There's a load of other colorways. There's a really good blue one actually that looks fantastic as well. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on this one down in the comments. A quick musical interlude for you. Today I've got one that I don't want you to go and listen to. I'm going to warn you about it and then you can avoid it because it's really bad. It's by Atomic Kitten and it's called Southgate You're the One. So I'm not going to get too into the Southgate England tactics and the team selection. Just going to try and talk about the track here. The initial part of the song starts off with a drum machine beat that seems like it was programmed in about 5 seconds. Everything sounds a bit auto-tuned, and in fact most of the verses are just exactly the same as the original track, and then when they get to the chorus obviously they changed it to Southgate You're the One. Humorously, one of the lines is I cannot escape and I cannot forget. They've even managed to get the line in there, football's coming home again. It's, why was this ever made? You know, they actually used plastic to make the CDs for this. Absolutely atrocious, especially when you compare it up to something like Back Home by the England 1970 squad. Avoid this one like the plague. Southgate You're the One. Football's coming home again. It's just absolute tripe. Thanks for tuning in, people. I hope you enjoyed today's review. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, but also give this video a thumbs up like and drop us a comment to help fight the algorithm. My name's Eddbud and I'll be seeing you